My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm 34 years old. I work with my hands. 6 weeks ago, I forgot my tools at my son's house, a bag of wrenches, a level, a tape measure. Nothing important, I thought. I went back to get them. The front door was unlocked. I let myself in. The way I always did, I called out. No answer, and then, from the kitchen, I heard something, 2 voices. Low. Deliberate. Like people who believe no one can hear them, I stood in that hallway for 4 minutes. I didn't move. I didn't breathe loud, and by the time I walked back out through that front door, without my tools, I had already decided everything was going to change. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now let me take you back, 7 years ago, when my father said something I didn't understand until that afternoon in my son's hallway. Words.my father's name was George Reeves. He was a carpenter. He smelled like sawdust and machine oil. Even at the dinner table, that smell was safety to me. We didn't have much. But what we had, he built with his own hands: the kitchen table, the bookshelves, the back porch where he'd sit in the evenings, listening to the radio with the volume low. I was 27 when I got married. My father liked my wife, Sarah. He'd shake her hand, firm, both hands, every time she came to visit. He told me once, a man who is known at home is known everywhere. I nodded. I said yes, Dad. I didn't ask what he meant. My son Marcus was born the following year. My father held him on that back porch, winter afternoon, grey light, his rough carpenter's hands cradling that tiny head. I remember the sound of the radio, still low, and the creak of the old wooden floor beneath his chair. He looked at Marcus for a long time. Then he looked at me. He said, "Watch who your son watches." That was it. Just 4 words. 7 years later, Marcus married a woman named Kelsey. I won't tell you I had a bad feeling immediately. I won't say that, because it wouldn't be entirely honest. What I will say is this: the first time she sat at our table for a family meal, she spent 40 minutes on her phone. She didn't ask a single question about my father, who had died 3 months before, and whose name came up twice that dinner. She smiled, though. The smile was perfect. Marcus worshipped her. I saw it in how he checked her face before laughing at a joke, in how he'd start a sentence, then let it go if she didn't respond. My wife, Sarah, noticed too. We didn't talk about it. That's how it works in families. You sense something wrong, and you wait, hoping you're mistaken. I was not mistaken. Sarah got sick 2 years into Marcus and Kelsey's marriage, quietly, the way good people often do. It started as tiredness. Then tests. Then a word the doctor said carefully, like they were handing over something breakable. Sarah died on a Tuesday in March. The light that day was flat and white. I remember the window. The sound of a cart in the hallway outside her room. I remember holding her hand, how thin it had become, and how the calluses on mine seemed cruel by comparison. The funeral was small. She would have wanted it that way. Kelsey stood at the back. She wore large sunglasses inside the church. She left before the reception. That night, I heard her tell Marcus, "The estate needs to be sorted quickly. These things drag out if you don't move fast." Estate, that's the word they use for everything that used to be love. I said nothing. I was grieving. I assumed I'd misheard the tone, but then the call started, not to me. Between Kelsey and her mother. I'd pick up the phone for another reason, hear 2 seconds, and put it down again. Small phrases. The house. What's in his name? When he's ready to downsize. I was 63 years old. I still worked. I still drove. I was not a man who needed managing, but I heard myself becoming one, in their conversations, before I had even agreed to it. Have you ever had to stay silent to protect yourself, even when every part of you wanted to speak up? Tell me in the comments. I read them. I made a decision in those months, not a dramatic one. Not anything I announced. I simply started paying attention, the way my father paid attention to wood grain before cutting, slow, patient, without emotion showing on the surface. I found out, through a cousin who worked in property, that Kelsey had spoken to 2 real estate agents about my house. The one my father helped me purchase in 1998. The one with the back porch. She hadn't asked me. She had asked 2 agents about square footage, lot value. And this was the detail that made me set down my coffee cup very carefully. Whether properties like mine typically transferred within families or through estate. I was invisible to them. They looked at me and saw a problem to be managed. A clock to be watched. I decided to use that. 3 months after Sarah died, I went through her desk. I'd been avoiding it. Her handwriting was on everything. Grocery lists, birthday reminders, notes to herself. At the back of the bottom drawer, beneath a folder of old receipts, there was an envelope, my name on the front. Her handwriting. I sat on the floor of that study for a long time before I opened it. Inside was a card from a man named Raymond Coles, attorney. Estate planning, and a note in Sarah's handwriting. He already knows everything. Call him when you're ready. I waited 2 more weeks, then I called Raymond Coles. He was calm on the phone. Professional. He said, "Mr. Reeves, your wife came to me 14 months ago. She was very thorough." I drove to his office on a Wednesday, clean room. Pale light from a high window. The smell of paper and something floral, faint. He spread documents on the table in front of me. Quietly, one at a time, Sarah had placed the house in a trust, 18 months before she died, my name. Only my name. It could not be transferred, sold, or included in any estate proceedings without my explicit notarized consent. She had also arranged, again, quietly, completely without announcement, that I held power of attorney over all accounts we'd built together. She knew, she had seen what I was only beginning to see, and she had moved, carefully, a year before the end. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to turn. That evening, this was 2 weeks before I forgot my tools. I heard Kelsey on the phone with her mother. I wasn't trying to listen. I was in the hallway of Marcus's house, waiting for him to get his jacket. Kelsey was in the kitchen, voice low. "The deed will come over in the next month. Marcus signs the papers, and his father can live there as long as he needs. Assisted living is the plan by next spring. Numbers, names, a timeline, all of it precise. All of it already decided." I drove home that night. I sat on the back porch, my father's back porch, and I texted Raymond Coles 2 words. "I'm ready." That night, Marcus and Kelsey went to sleep believing the plan was moving. It was, just not the one they'd written. It was 11:50 p.m. when I sat down at the kitchen table. Raymond had sent the documents by courier that afternoon. I made a cup of tea. I read everything twice, 12:03 a.m. I am 63 years old. I am the sole trustee of my home and everything in it. Across town, Kelsey was asleep. Marcus had probably just turned off the light. They would find out in about 9 hours, when Raymond's office opened and sent a letter to the address they'd been corresponding with. That letter explained, simply and without malice, that the property in question was held in an irrevocable trust, and that no transfer was legally possible. It also noted that any further communication regarding the property should be directed to Mr. Raymond Coles. Marcus called me at 10:17 that morning. His voice was confused. Not angry. Confused. "Dad, what is this letter?" I said, "I'll think about it." Then I went back to my tea. The following Sunday, a family dinner Marcus had organized. Kelsey pulled me aside near the kitchen. She was calm. Her smile was still perfect. "Daniel, I think there's been a misunderstanding about the house." I looked at her for a moment. Then I said, "There's no misunderstanding." She looked at me like I was still the man she'd been planning around. I wasn't. I hadn't been, for 7 months. My father used to say, "Watch who your son watches." I always thought he meant, choose your friends carefully. He meant, a man becomes what he allows to be close to him. Watch what your son is learning to see as normal. Kelsey and Marcus separated 8 months after that Sunday dinner. I don't know all of what happened between them. I didn't ask. What I know is that Marcus called me on a Thursday evening and said, "Dad, I didn't see it." I told him, "Now you do." Raymond Coles retired last spring. He sent me a bottle of something good and a handwritten note. As for me, I still have the back porch, the radio, the creaking floor. I think about Sarah every time I sit out there in the evening, and I think, she never said a word about what she'd done. She just did it. Quietly. Completely. That was always her way. If you've ever had to protect something quietly, without anyone knowing you were doing it, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, and if this moved you, subscribe. There are more to come.